The Gizmo 3D has a few hidden features along with modifiers. By default, your entire mesh moves when using the Gizmo 3D. However, editing your focal shift will soften its influence. The placement of your Gizmo 3D relative to your mesh also plays a factor on how it affects your mesh. This is useful for smooth form exploration and smoothly manipulating hard surface meshes. Add a mask to this setup and you can actually do some sculpting this way. Perform a quick inflate on your mesh by Control, click and drag on the yellow scaling square. Perform a quick clip by Control, click and drag the rectangular scale handles. Pulling in the opposite direction will clip from the opposite side of your mesh. This is a fast method of flattening one side of your mesh. Clicking the gear icon will open the Modifiers menu. On the top row are editable primitives. Clicking will replace your mesh, while masking everything first will append the mesh to your subtool instead of replacing it. Also, the placement of your Gizmo 3D is where your primitive will appear. All modifiers feature adjustable cones that act like sliders. The following modifiers are useful for hard surface editing, beginning with Bend Arc modifier will let you arc your mesh from a few directions. I recommend hovering over each cone to read its description at the bottom of each cube and simply explore pulling on each cone. At any time you can reset your edits by clicking the gear icon to open the menu and clicking the reset button, resetting the modifier and your edits. When you're happy with your edits, click the gear icon and press accept to commit. The deformer modifier adds a 3D grid over your mesh with movable points to deform your model. Simply click and drag on points to see its effects on your mesh. For easy viewing and editing, turn off perspective to move points. Manipulate a cluster of points by unmasking them. Be aware that you are currently unable to position your Gizmo 3D when using the deformer modifier. The red, blue, and green cones control your symmetry settings for each axis. The orange cones add additional points for editing your mesh. The symmetry options will only allow you to edit one side of your mesh when active. Clearing your mask will deselect your points. You can also scale and rotate clusters of points as well. The Bend Curve modifier adds points along your mesh's X, Y, and Z axes for stretching, curving, and more. However, you may need to align your gizmo to match the angle of your model. Simply click and hold the Alt key while positioning to reorient your Gizmo 3D. Be sure to check positioning from no less than 2 angles when repositioning your Gizmo 3D. Restart the Bend Curve modifier now with our Gizmo 3D aligned to the object. Simply click and drag on points to bend. The blue cone controls the smoothing of your bends. The 2 white cones control the squeeze and scaling of each point. And lastly, the orange cone controls the twisting for each point. This modifier allows you to add additional control points after manipulating for additional control without resetting your edits. Smooth All is a pretty useful modifier. Simply pull on the blue cone to see your model smooth all over. Taper is a handy modifier to add a cone tip to any end of your mesh. Simply pulling on any cone will show its effects. Switch up the position of your taper cones by altering the position of your Gizmo 3D. This will allow you to taper in different angles than originally set. The twist modifier allows you to quickly twist your mesh by pulling on either of 6 cones. After orienting your Gizmo 3D, you should be set to use any other modifier. The extender modifier is another useful modifier. Extend your mesh along its local axes with the orange cones. Enable symmetry with the red, blue, and green cones. Increase resolution along each axis with the white cones. I found this particular set of modifiers useful for hard surface. Do play around with these and other modifiers. In the next clip, we will discuss booleans.